The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and despair, a sterile chill seeping into my bones. I lay there, Victoria Bennett, 35 years old, my abdomen a battlefield, pain twisting deeper with every breath, like a knife carving me open from the inside. Las Vegas Medical Center wasn't where I'd planned to spend Christmas Eve, but life doesn't ask for permission. My twins, Liam and Sophia, 3 years old and too small to understand, giggled softly in the corner, stacking plastic blocks into wobbly towers. Their innocence was a fragile shield against the chaos in my gut. I clutched my phone, hands trembling, the screen blurring through tears as my mother's voice erupted from the video call. "Don't you dare ask us to cancel our plans again, Victoria. We've had these Elton John tickets for months." Her words echoed off the pale walls, sharp and unyielding, her face a mask of indignation framed by the garish lights of their hotel suite. I stared, stunned, the ache in my body momentarily drowned by the sting of her indifference. "Mom, I'm in the hospital," I managed, voice cracking. "It's an emergency." The twins. "You're always making everything about you," she snapped. "We deserve this night." Dad's face loomed into view, his jaw tight. "You're becoming a real nuisance, Victoria. A burden. We're retired now, our time to enjoy life, not babysit yours." The line went dead, and I dropped the phone onto the thin blanket, my breath hitching. Babysit? Their only grandchildren, orphaned by their father's death 6 months ago, and I was bleeding internally, possibly dying, and they couldn't miss one concert? The pain surged, a white-hot wave, and I pressed a hand to my stomach, biting back a sob. Liam looked up, his brown eyes wide. "Mommy okay?" "Yeah, buddy," I lied, forcing a smile that felt like breaking glass. Nurse Rachel moved quietly behind me, her fingers cool against my wrist as she checked my pulse. Her dark hair was pulled back, her eyes soft with something I couldn't name, pity, maybe, or understanding. "Vitals are stable," she murmured, "but we need to get you into surgery soon." She glanced at the twins, then back at me, her touch lingering on my shoulder. "You're not alone here." I wanted to believe her, but the silence after my parents' rejection roared louder than the machines. Alone was all I'd ever been to them, second to Lauren, their golden child, second to their precious plans. The twins' laughter faded into a distant hum, and I stared at the ceiling, wondering if this was where it all ended, on a cold table, with no one to catch my kids if I didn't make it. The pain dragged me under, and memories clawed their way up, sharp, jagged pieces of a life spent chasing shadows. I was 8, standing in a scratchy dress at my spelling bee, first place ribbon in hand, but Mom and Dad didn't come. Lauren had a dance recital that day, and her glitter-dusted pirouettes trumped my quiet victory. They didn't care. At 16, I graduated high school with honors. They barely nodded, too busy framing Lauren's local commercial clipping, a toothpaste ad, for God's sake. College was the same. I walked across that stage, degree in hand, while they fussed over Lauren's callback for some community theater gig. When I married Daniel, they complained the venue was too far, 2 hours from their precious lake house. He saw it, though. Daniel saw me. "They don't deserve you," he'd say, his voice low and steady, blue eyes locking onto mine. "We'll build our own family, Vic, one that knows how to love." We did. Liam and Sophia came, screaming and perfect, and for a while it was enough. Even then, Ellen and Richard visited once, wrinkling their noses at the fussy babies, leaving after an hour with excuses about traffic. Daniel was my rock, the one who understood family could disappoint. He'd cut ties with his own dad years before. "We're enough," he'd whisper, pulling me close. Then the drunk driver stole him. 6 months ago, a screech of tires and a phone call that shattered everything. I kept going, depression clawing at me, grief a constant weight, but I sent Mom and Dad $2,500 every month. Had for 3 years since they took early retirement, whining about their mortgage and needing a break. I did it after Daniel died, too, upping it when they moaned about inflation. Out of love. Duty. Foolishness. I thought family stuck together, that I could be better than them, prove I'd never abandon my own the way they'd abandoned me. Now, here I was, bleeding out in a hospital bed, and they couldn't spare a night. Not for me, not for Liam and Sophia, who'd already lost their dad. The irony was a bitter pill, lodging in my throat as the pain pulsed again. I'd given everything, and they'd given me nothing but a dial tone. The knife in my gut twisted harder, a scream I couldn't let out because Liam and Sophia didn't need to see me crack. Tears slid down my cheeks, silent and hot, soaking into the rough hospital blanket. I'd exhausted every option. Friends were out of town, neighbors unreachable on Christmas Eve. My parents were my last lifeline, and they'd snapped it for Elton John tickets. The weight of it crushed me, disappointment heavier than the pain shredding my insides. Rachel squeezed my shoulder, her voice soft but firm. My friend Megan's a professional nanny, specializes in childhood trauma. She's good with kids like yours, who've been through a lot. Let me call her for you. I looked at her, the room tilting. A stranger's kindness cut through the fog, sharper than my parents' callousness. Liam stacked another block, Sophia babbled at her giraffe, and something snapped into focus. I couldn't keep bleeding for people who wouldn't even bandage me. Yes, I rasped, throat raw. Please call her. Rachel nodded, stepping away, and I fumbled for my phone. The call log stared back, Mom's name, Dad's venom still ringing in my ears. I hung up, fingers shaking, and blocked them. No more begging. No more waiting for scraps of love they'd never give. The pain surged again, a brutal reminder of the surgery ahead, but beneath it, a spark flared, small, fragile, defiant. In that moment, with my body breaking and my heart a wreck, I cut the first thread of the poisonous ties that had bound me to them my whole life. Liam giggled, Sophia clapped, and I clung to that sound, a lifeline of my own making. I wasn't alone, not entirely. Not anymore. The operating room swallowed me whole, a blur of bright lights and masked faces fading into darkness. I drifted in and out after 5 days in that hospital bed, consciousness slipping like sand through my fingers. The pain dulled to a throbbing ache, stitched up but lingering, a reminder of how close I'd come to leaving Liam and Sophia behind. My body was weak, a fragile shell patched together, but I'd survived. That was something. The twins stayed close, their little voices a tether pulling me back each time I sank too deep. Rachel had kept her word. Megan arrived within the hour that first night, tall, with warm brown eyes and a quiet confidence that put me at ease even through the haze. She knelt by Liam and Sophia, her voice soft as she introduced a worn stuffed bear from her bag. "This is Teddy," she said, and Sophia giggled, reaching for it. Megan glanced at me, a nod that said she understood more than I'd told her. They'd been through a lot, Rachel had whispered to her, and I didn't need to ask how she knew. Trauma clung to my kids like a shadow, Daniel's death, now this. Megan's presence was a lifeline I hadn't expected. I couldn't stop worrying about money, though. Medical bills loomed, Daniel's insurance already stretched thin from the accident. How much will this cost? I croaked to Rachel one lucid afternoon, my voice barely above a whisper. She adjusted my her touch steady. Don't worry about that now. Let's focus on getting you through this. Her kindness felt foreign after Mom and Dad's venom, but it steadied me. That night, hands still shaky, I grabbed my phone and logged into my bank app. The $2,500 auto transfer to Ellen and Richard glowed on the screen, next week's payment, their lifeline, not mine. I canceled it, a small click that echoed louder than the surgery's silence. Then I texted them, no more money. Don't contact me. The phone dimmed, and I exhaled, a weight lifting even as my body sank into the mattress. Recovery was a slow crawl, but the world didn't wait. My phone blinked awake on day 3, notifications piling up like storm clouds, 27 missed calls, a flood of texts from Ellen, Richard, and Lauren. I scrolled through, each word a fresh cut. Mom's first message was confusion, "What's this about money?" Dad's followed, sharp and furious, "You can't just cut us off like this, we've planned a cruise next month, tickets are non-refundable." Then please, desperate and shameless, "The mortgage is due, Victoria, we need that cash." Not one asked how I was, if the surgery had worked, if their grandchildren were okay. I stared at the screen, anger simmering beneath the exhaustion, a slow burn I couldn't shake. Lauren's texts were different, a thread of bewilderment cutting through the noise. Mom and Dad said you had some minor procedure, what's going on? Why are they freaking out about money? My chest tightened. They'd lied to her, downplayed my emergency to keep their perfect daughter on their side. I typed back, still groggy from meds, fingers fumbling over the keys. It was emergency surgery, internal bleeding. They refused to watch Liam and Sophia for a concert. I'm done. I hit send, breath held, waiting for her reply. It came fast. Oh my God, Victoria, I had no idea. They told me you were being dramatic about a checkup. I'd have watched the twins if I'd known, I'm so sorry. Her words cracked something open, a flicker of hope amidst the wreckage. Lauren wasn't cruel, just blind, raised in the glow of Ellen and Richard's favoritism. Maybe she could see them now, see me. But my parents' silence on my survival spoke louder than their begging ever could. I pictured them in that hotel suite, sipping wine, swaying to Rocket Man while I bled out, and the anger flared hotter. They'd assumed I'd cave, that my love was a bottomless well they could drain dry. 5 days post-op, I was weak, stitched together, but not broken, not anymore. I blocked their numbers, each tap a brick in a wall I was building, one they couldn't climb. The twins slept beside me, Liam snores soft, Sophia clutching Megan's bear. They were my fight now, not Ellen and Richard's entitlement. Discharge day came, and I left the hospital leaning on Megan, the twins' hands in hers. My apartment felt smaller, the air thick with the scent of antiseptic still clinging to me. I sat on the couch, incision throbbing, and made decisions I'd never dared before. I hired Megan part-time, 3 days a week to start, her steady presence a balm for Liam and Sophia's confusion. Mommy's resting, she'd say, guiding them to crayons and blocks, and I'd nod, grateful beyond words. Next, I called a lawyer, voice steadier than I felt, and drafted a will. Daniel's sister, Claire, would take the twins if I didn't make it, not Ellen and Richard, never them. Lauren showed up that weekend, her knock tentative, a grocery bag of soup and bread in hand. I can't believe they lied, she said, sitting across from me, eyes searching mine. I thought you were pushing us away, not this. Her sincerity caught me off guard, a thread of connection I hadn't expected. We talked, cautious at first, her apologies quiet but real. I didn't trust her fully, not yet, but the visit softened something in me. I blocked Mom and Dad's numbers permanently that night, fingers firm on the screen, then exhaled into the silence. The twins laughed down the hall, Megan's voice weaving through their chatter. Maybe I wasn't completely alone after all. Maybe I could build something new from the ashes they'd left behind. Weeks crept by, my incision still a dull throb when I moved too fast, but I was managing, stitches healing, twins adjusting to Megan's rhythm. That afternoon, Liam stacked blocks in the living room while Sophia sang to her bear, her voice a high, sweet thread through the quiet. Then came the knock, sharp, insistent, rattling the thin apartment door. I peered through the peephole, heart thudding. Ellen and Richard stood there, Mom clutching her designer purse like a shield, Dad's arms crossed, his familiar impatience etched deep. I hesitated, breath shallow, then opened the door just a crack, enough to speak but not to yield. Victoria, darling, we've been so worried, Mom began, her voice dripping sugar, the kind that coated lies. You haven't answered our calls, we needed to make sure you and the twins were all right. Her eyes darted past me, searching for something to latch onto, but I held firm, the gap unyielding. We're fine, I said flatly, my tone a wall. What do you want? Dad pushed against the door, his broad hand testing its give. We need to discuss this ridiculous financial situation. The bank called about our mortgage, we had to dip into cruise savings to cover it. The audacity hit me like a slap, but I didn't flinch. You chose Elton John tickets over watching your grandchildren during my emergency surgery, I said, voice steady, anger rising but controlled. Plans more important than my kids' safety? Than my life? Mom's face crumpled, theatrics on cue. We made one mistake, Are you really going to punish us like this? Punishment? The word twisted in my gut, but I met it with calm fury. This isn't punishment, Mom. This is consequence. I've spent my life chasing your approval, and when I needed you most, you picked a concert. Dad's tone shifted, demanding respect he hadn't earned. We're your parents, Victoria. I straightened, the ache in my side a dull echo of my resolve. And I'm a parent too. I'd never treat Liam and Sophia the way you've treated me, never. Just then, Sophia toddled into view, clutching her bear, her dark curls bouncing. Mom pounced, voice syrupy. There's my precious grandbaby, Grandma brought presents. Sophia froze, uncertain, then backed toward me, her small hand brushing my leg. They don't know you, I said quietly, the truth ablaze. You should leave. When I'm ready, if I'm ever ready, I'll reach out. I eased the door shut, their protests fading as the lock clicked, a sound as final as my decision. The next morning, my phone buzzed with an email from Richard, CC'd to the entire extended family, a manifesto of self-pity titled Our Ungrateful Daughter. I skimmed it, chest tight but unsurprised. Victoria's abandoned us in our time of need, it read, after we sacrificed everything for her. No mention of the surgery, the twins, their refusal, just a portrait of me as the villain who'd cut them off without cause. Their lies unraveled faster than I'd expected, though, when Cousin Matt replied to all, Uncle Richard, didn't you just buy a new boat last month? Aunt Linda chimed in, and Ellen, wasn't that a diamond tennis bracelet at Thanksgiving? I sat back, a grim satisfaction settling in as private messages trickled through, cousins, uncles, asking for the real story. I crafted one reply, fingers steady on the keys, I had emergency surgery with a risk of complications. They refused to watch Liam and Sophia because of concert tickets. I'm focusing on recovery and my kids now. I hit send, letting the truth stand bare, no embellishment needed. The backlash shifted the tide, Matt's wife dropped off a lasagna that night, steam rising from the foil as she hugged me. I had no idea, she whispered. A second cousin I barely knew texted, offering free babysitting, kids are adorable, let me help. Lauren called later, her voice tight with frustration. They're spinning this to everyone, Vic, saying you're overreacting. But the family's not buying it, not after your email. I nodded to myself, the vindication softening into something warmer. Let them talk, I said, watching Liam nap on the couch, Sophia sprawled beside him. The truth's out. By evening, my inbox glowed with support, recipes, playdate offers, a quiet chorus of care I hadn't expected. Their words wrapped around me like a quilt, pieced together from scraps of kindness, and for the first time since Daniel's death, the weight on my chest felt lighter. Ellen and Richard could rage all they wanted, their hold was slipping, and I was standing taller in its absence. A month later, they showed up again, unannounced, a spreadsheet clutched in Dad's hand like a lifeline. I invited them in, not out of obligation, but curiosity, wondering how far their desperation had stretched them. The living room was dim, toys scattered, the twins with Megan for the afternoon. Ellen sat stiffly on the couch, Richard pacing as he laid out their plea. We need $144,000 to catch up on the mortgage and avoid foreclosure, he said, his usual authority fraying into something raw. We've tried everything. I leaned back, arms crossed, the incision a faint ache now. What about the boat? We'd take a loss, he snapped. And the timeshare? Market's terrible, Mom cut in, too quick. Those are our retirement luxuries. I almost laughed, the absurdity a bitter tang on my tongue. Luxuries you can't afford, I said, voice even. Dad's eyes hardened. We could afford them with your help. It's the least you could do after everything we've done for you. The air stilled, his words a challenge I'd waited years to meet. What exactly have you done for me? I asked, quiet but firm, letting the question hang. They didn't answer, couldn't. Liam's truck rolled across the floor, forgotten, as silence thickened. Mom's face crumpled again, a sob in her throat. Without your help, we'll lose everything. I didn't blink. I lost Daniel, I said, steady now, unbothered by their theatrics. My kids lost their father. We survived. You'll survive too. Richard's jaw tightened, but he didn't push. Maybe he saw the wall I'd built, taller than their guilt trips. Ellen reached for my hand, stopping short. We didn't think you'd actually stop, she whispered, as if that excused it all. I stood, gesturing to the door. I was never your bank. I was your daughter. You chose differently. They left, heads low, spreadsheet crumpled in Dad's fist. I locked the door behind them, the click of full stop. Their collapse didn't shake me, not anymore. I'd carried them long enough, and the freedom of letting go tasted sharp and clean, like air after a storm. 6 months after the surgery, I stood in the backyard of a small 3-bedroom house, the air thick with the scent of fresh paint and possibility. The twins tore across the grass, Liam chasing Sophia, her squeals piercing the quiet of our new neighborhood. I'd sold the cramped apartment, Daniel's life insurance and my savings stretching just far enough with help from Sarah, a real estate agent I'd met in a widow support group. She'd lost her husband to cancer 2 years back, left with a son not much older than my kids, and her sharp "I found this place, mortgage cheaper than rent, a backyard for the first time. You deserve this," she'd said, handing me the keys, and I'd believed her. The move wasn't just bricks and mortar. My graphic design work had slowed, clients patient through my recovery, but a side project bloomed, designing memorial websites, sparked by the one I'd built for Daniel. Support group friends commissioned a few, word spreading like ripples, and soon it was steady enough to cut back on freelancing. The work felt right, weaving grief into something lasting, a purpose beyond survival. Megan still came 3 days a week, her calm hands guiding Liam and Sophia while I typed, their laughter filtering through the screen door. Neighbors knocked with casseroles when we settled in, their names, Jen, Mark, becoming familiar, their kids joining mine for chaotic playdates. Lauren started visiting too, weekends mostly, her arms full of healthy meals and a growing ease with the twins. They always made it seem like you were choosing distance, she admitted one evening, watching Sophia smear mashed peas on Liam's cheek. I never saw them pushing you away. Her words bridged a gap I hadn't known could mend, not fully, but enough to feel less alone. The support group grew into a lifeline, Zoom calls with parents who'd walked my path, their voices a mirror to my quiet nights after Daniel's death. Rachel even stopped by once, twins in tow, her nurse's scrub swapped for jeans. I'd lost so much, husband, parents, but here, in this house, with this patchwork community, I felt less adrift. The guilt still whispered, an old habit, but self-respect took root, steady and unfamiliar, anchoring me to a life I'd built from the ashes. The letter came on a Tuesday, slipped through the mail slot in a crisp white envelope, Ellen's handwriting a ghost from a past I'd locked away. I almost tossed it unopened, fingers hovering over the trash, but curiosity tugged harder. I sat at the kitchen table, Liam napping, Sophia with Megan in the yard, and slid it open. I've had time to reflect, Mom wrote, her script shaky but deliberate. Watching you build a life without us forced me to face painful truths. I was jealous of your resilience, your independence, I resented that you didn't need me the way I needed my mother. When you asked us to care for the twins during your surgery, you reached out, and we failed you completely. I'm deeply sorry. I read it twice, breath caught in my throat. She detailed their changes, Richard working part-time at a hardware store, luxury items sold, a modest condo now theirs after losing the lake house. No plea for money, just a request I acknowledge her words. I folded the paper, staring at the grain of the table. Genuine remorse or another mask? I couldn't tell, not yet. Lauren stopped by that night, her brow furrowing as I handed her the letter. They've been talking about writing for weeks, she said, scanning it. Dad resisted, but his heart scare last month, high blood pressure, chest pains, changed him. He's on meds, actually listening to doctors. They're in therapy too, Jessica's idea. I nodded, skepticism a tight knot in my chest. They've adapted before, I said, voice low. This could be strategy, not change. Lauren sighed, setting the letter down. Maybe. But they're downsizing, really downsizing. I don't know, Vic. She left, and I sat there, the house quiet save for Sophia's distant giggles. The letter didn't erase the past, didn't soften the scars, but it planted a seed of doubt, not trust, not yet, just a guarded curiosity about who they might become. A year after the surgery, I agreed to meet them at a quiet cafe near my house, the twins safe with Lauren for the afternoon. I wasn't ready for a reunion, not with Liam and Sophia, but I needed to see their faces, test their words against the weight of memory. They arrived looking smaller, Richard's broad shoulders hunched, his usual swagger gone, Ellen in simple slacks, no designer gleam. We sat, silence stretching thin, until Dad did something I'd never seen. He cried. "I've been a terrible father," he said, voice breaking, tears streaking his lined face. "An even worse grandfather. I don't expect forgiveness, but I see it now, how selfish we've been." Ellen reached across the table, her hand hovering but not touching mine. "We've been in family therapy for months," she said, steady but soft. "Lauren pushed us into it, we fought it at first, but it's been transformative." I listened, arms crossed, the hum of the cafe a buffer against their words. They didn't ask for money or a reset, just shared Richard's job, their pared-down life, the heart scare that humbled him. I pulled out my phone, swiping to a photo of Liam and Sophia in the backyard, mud-streaked and grinning. "This is our life now," I said, sliding it across. "I built something without you." They leaned in, eyes softening, and for once, they didn't interrupt, didn't twist it back to themselves. As we parted, Richard paused, voice quiet. "Would it be possible someday to know our grandchildren?" I studied him, then Ellen, their faces stripped of the masks I'd known. "That depends on your actions, not your words," I said, firm but not cold. "If you're serious about change, we can start with short, supervised visits. But my kids will only know people who respect their mother." I walked away, the cafe door jangling shut behind me, a calm assurance settling in my bones. I didn't owe them redemption, didn't need their approval anymore. Whatever they became, I'd already forged my path, fierce in protection, clear in expectation, and that was enough. The house was still that evening, a soft hum of cicadas drifting through the open window as I pulled an old photo album from the shelf. Dust coated the leather cover, untouched since Daniel's death, but tonight felt right, 18 months after the surgery, a year and a half of clawing my way out of the wreckage. I sat on the couch, Liam and Sophia asleep down the hall, their breaths a steady rhythm I could feel in my bones. The first page creaked open, and there we were, me at 6, gap-toothed and grinning, Lauren beside me in a frilly dress, Ellen and Richard beaming behind us. The smiles looked real, but I saw it now, the tilt of their heads toward Lauren, the way my edges blurred in their focus. I flipped further, tracing the pattern through years, my college graduation, a small snapshot dwarfed by Lauren's theater headshots, my wedding to Daniel, their tight lips barely masking the inconvenience. Behind those frozen moments, they'd been performers, not parents, playing roles of devotion while serving themselves first. Daniel's face appeared next, his arm around me at the twins' first birthday, cake smeared on his cheek. "We're enough," he'd said that day, and I'd believed him. Now, with him gone, I'd made it true, not out of spite, but survival, a fierce need to shield Liam and Sophia from the neglect I'd swallowed for decades. The album closed with a soft thud, and I leaned back, the weight of it settling differently now. I wasn't that girl anymore, desperate for approval, bending until I broke. I was a mother, fierce in protection, clear in expectation, and the life I'd built proved it. The backyard stretched beyond the window, a patchy square of grass where the twins raced daily, their laughter a soundtrack to my days. Megan still came twice a week, her steady hands a gift as my memorial website business grew, 10 clients this month, each site a quiet tribute to love lost. Sarah's playdates with her son wove into our routine, neighbors like Jen dropping cookies unannounced, their warmth a thread I'd never known with Ellen and Richard. Lauren had become a fixture too, her weekend visits a bridge rebuilt on shaky but honest ground. She'd pulled away from our parents after that cafe meeting, her own eyes opening to their patterns. "I told them I'm done excusing them," she'd said last Sunday, sipping coffee as Sophia tugged her hair. "You're my family now, the twins too. I'd nodded, not rushing to trust, but letting her prove it with time. Ellen and Richard had started supervised visits, once a month, an hour at the park, their voices softer, their hands empty of demands. Richard pushed Liam on the swing last time, Ellen knelt to tie Sophia's shoe, and I watched, arms crossed, not thawing but observing. Change was theirs to earn, not mine to give. The phone sat silent on the table, no more pleas, no desperate texts since they'd sold the last of their luxuries. Their condo was modest, their lives pared down, and I felt no tug to fix it. I'd carried their burdens too long, and shedding them left me lighter, rooted in a self-respect I'd fought to claim. A breeze rustled the curtains, carrying the scent of cut grass, and I stood, stretching the faint ache where the incision had healed. The twins' room glowed with a nightlight as I checked on them, Liam sprawled, Sophia curled tight, her bear tucked under her chin. I adjusted their blankets, my touch a promise I'd never break. Back in the living room, I opened my laptop, a new memorial site half finished on the screen. The work waited, patient and mine, a piece of purpose carved from grief. The album stayed on the shelf, a relic of who I'd been, not who I was. I typed, the keys clicking softly, and felt it, serene authority, a woman remade, neither obligated nor resentful, standing firm in a life I'd shaped with my own hands.